Wondering what spring in Montana is really like? Well, in this video, I'm going to get in depth about the weather and things to do and what to expect in springtime here in Bozeman, Montana and the Gallatin Valley. And really, this applies to all of Southwest Montana. One thing is for sure, you'll find that the people who live here are ready to soak up the sun and get out there. While the weather does tend to be fickle, it's generally comfortable, and the spring snow, if we do get some, doesn't tend to stick around for that long. So let's get after it right now. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in Bozeman, Montana and the surrounding areas here in Southwest Montana, like Big Sky, Ennis, Livingston, and Three Forks, then be sure to subscribe below and tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know about the current market here in Bozeman and those surrounding areas here in Southwest Montana. My name is Hallie. I'm a local real estate agent, and the team and I, we get calls, texts, and emails every single day from people just like you looking to make their move here in beautiful Southwest Montana, and we absolutely love it. Whether you're looking to buy or sell or move or invest in the next 9 days or 90 days, just give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email, and I'd be honored to help you find your place here in Southwest Montana. All my information is in the description below. So as you may have already heard, Montana winters can be pretty tough, and that winter weather tends to push right into spring. So weather can be quite variable during the springtime. Some seasons or years are, more harsh and snowier, while others tend to be a bit, more mild and warmer. But spring really is a wild mix between warm sunny days and random snowstorms. Some call it false spring, others call it mud season or the shoulder seasons because it's more of a transition period between our winter months and summer months. The Gallatin Valley, which is where Bozeman and Belgrade and Manhattan, as well as Gallatin, Gateway, and Churchill and Amsterdam are located, just to name a few, is surrounded essentially by mountains. Around the valley are the Spanish Peaks, the Gallatin Range, the Bridger Range, the Crazies, and the Tobacco Roots. Again, just to name a few of those mountain ranges. As far as elevation goes, Bozeman sits right about 4,800 feet above sea level. Now, south of us at Big Sky in the base area at the ski resort there is 7,200 feet above sea level, and the highest peak at the resort there is just over 11,000. Now, the Bridger Ridge to the northeast of Bozeman is the ridge itself at the top of that ski area is about 9,600 feet above sea level. As I mentioned, winter does tend to encroach in on spring, but Montana overall does have 4 fairly distinct seasons. It just so happens that winter is the longest. But springtime is a wonderful time to rediscover all of the things that we love about having that warm weather here in Montana. So yes, spring technically begins in March, but most people here in Montana don't really consider it spring until April, when we start seeing things warm up a little bit more and that ski season is over. I've mentioned both Bridger Bowl and Big Sky. Bridger tends to close early to mid-April, and Big Sky usually closes mid to late April. The spring skiing around here is absolutely fabulous. So even though some of our weather in the spring can be a little bit wild, one thing is for certain: spring brings us longer days. On average in January, the area sees about 9 hours of daylight, and in March that goes up to 12. So it goes without saying that everybody around here gets pretty stoked when we start to see a little bit more daylight, longer days, and possibly a little bit more warmth. As always, within just minutes of Bozeman, there is plenty of outdoor recreation and so much you can get outside and do. So I wanted to get into a list of some of the best things to do here outside around Bozeman in the springtime. And the first one is fly fishing. Once the ice has melted off of the rivers, it's a perfect time to get some fishing in before that snow melt runoff hits the rivers as well. The fish are hungry and haven't seen a fly probably in months, so if you time it right, it's an absolute sweet spot for fly fishing. Mountain biking in the spring is typically discouraged as it can tear up the trails, which tend to be pretty muddy. But there are plenty of great roads to check out while you wait for things to dry up a little bit. Yellowstone National Park opens up for biking before they open up for vehicles, and that typically happens when the snow melts in early spring. And Highlight Canyon closes the road to vehicles, so it's only open for bicyclists in the springtime, so you can get up to the reservoir without any traffic and without having to worry about that windy road, on your bicycle. And of course, outside of Three Forks, there are the Copper City trails, which usually dry out in that area sooner than Bozeman. So some wonderful opportunities to get out and, get on your bike even before some of those mountain bike trails are ready. Now, one thing I want to go a little bit more in depth on that I mentioned previously is that spring skiing and snowboarding. Like I said, Bridger Bowl closes early April. This year they closed on April 7th, and Big Sky usually closes mid to late April, this year closing on April 23rd. But the skiing and snowboarding this spring has been absolutely phenomenal. Lots of fresh snow coming in still, powder skiing that oftentimes still felt like the middle of winter. It was absolutely epic this year in particular. So it goes without saying that spring skiing and snowboarding is an absolute favorite thing to do around here, and there's great snow often well into April. With the combination of not too hot and not too cold temperatures and weather, it can be a great time to also check out the various hot springs around the area. About an hour away from Bozeman, about half an hour south of Livingston, you're going to find Chico Hot Springs. A little bit further south in Gardner, you'll find Yellowstone Hot Springs. And then if we come closer to Bozeman, just on the west side in that Four Corners part of Bozeman, you're going to find Bozeman Hot Springs. And then just out the highway a little bit further west in Norris, you'll find Norris Hot Springs, which is absolutely phenomenal and has some live music as well. Springtime is also a wonderful time to visit Yellowstone National Park. When the park reopens in the spring, generally again mid-April, it's a wonderful time to go, usually less crowded overall, and there's a ton of baby animals. You'll see bison calves and bear cubs and wolf pups and all kinds of other animals coming out and a little bit more active in the spring before it gets hotter in the summer as well. So it's one of my personal favorite times to go. And if you're willing to go hike a little bit, the spring wildflowers are absolutely gorgeous too. Now there are two public golf courses in the Bozeman area, Bridger Creek Golf Course and Cottonwood. Cottonwood's over on the west side and Bridger Creek is over on the northeast side. Both of those are going to basically open once the courses thaw out and the snow has all melted, which typically happens anywhere from late March down in the valley to mid to late April. I know this year we had a ton of snow and Bridger Creek was just able to open this week. There are also two private golf courses in the area, Riverside and Black Bull, which also start their operations around the same time with the same requirements with the weather and the ground surface. But either way, it's a wonderful time to get out there and remind yourself how to swing a club. Another fun thing to do in spring is whitewater rafting. Typically in early May is when the rafting season begins, as runoff and that snow melt is happening up in the mountains, and that makes rafting season a go. It's an absolute blast for adrenaline seekers, of course, because the water is high and fast. Of course, if you prefer calmer waters, you can certainly get out and canoe or raft the Madison River, which will be experiencing a little bit higher, faster waters as well, but it's not quite so rocky and, there's not all of the rapids and everything there to contend with. Now, it's a great time in the spring because the Madison River will be much less busy than it gets in the hotter months in, June, July, or August. And in the spring, venues like Pine Creek Lodge are going to start doing more of their outdoor music events. More of that happens into the summer, of course, but certain places do start that in the spring as people are excited to get outside and have some outdoor dining and enjoy some outdoor live music as well. Also, something that begins again in March and goes clear through December is the Bozeman Running Company's 5K Brew Run series. On the second Wednesday of every month, they do a 5K where you end at a brewery and you can grab a pint. I know it's an absolute locals favorite and just speaks to that Bozeman culture of getting outside and also grabbing a really good beer. And as the days continue to get warmer and that blanket of white continues to disappear all around the valley and into the mountains, that's when some of the most beautiful wildflowers definitely start to pop up all around. buttercups and shooting stars and so many more. And some of the best places to see those for spring hikes are in Sipes Canyon, up Highlight, at Mosier Creek Trail, as well as History Rock. And of course, Drinking Horse and the M Trail just outside of Bozeman here. May is an absolutely wonderful time in particular to see all of those wildflowers, especially at that M Trail. There's a ton of them all over that hillside right before you head into Bridger Canyon. One thing that our family has been lucky enough to enjoy in the spring is a robin has built a nest in one of our trees in our backyard each year, or rather returned to that nest each year. So it's been really fun seeing those, robins' blue eggs hatch each year and watching those fledglings, make their way out of the nest. And in addition to that, there's absolutely wonderful bird watching in the spring here, all around the valley. In particular at Story Mill Park, over on that north side of Bozeman, there's an actually dedicated area for bird watching that's a little bit of a preserve as well. So if you're into bird watching, it's a really cool time of year for that too. Another lovely thing to start doing here in the springtime, of course, is gardening. Now, the one thing I will caution you is don't start too soon or start your seeds indoors if that's the way you want to do it. We've got some wonderful garden stores all around the area. The Garden Barn is one of my personal favorites, but they will all warn you this as well. Don't start things outside too soon. The risk of freeze or frost typically isn't gone until mid or maybe even late May. So we tend to put some of our cold crops out sooner than that and hold off on certain things that are more sensitive, like tomatoes. One thing that Bozeman organizes every springtime is a cleanup day. So everybody meets at the Bozeman Public Library. There's a complimentary breakfast, and that's where you pick up your cleanup kit. So you can go around and beautify the area a bit. It's usually right around or near Earth Day as well. The Friends of Highlight also organizes a cleanup day, typically in May, for the entire area of Highlight around the reservoir and all the trails, which is a great thing to do for people who love to utilize those trails, all summer and fall as well. Spring does tend to be less dry in Montana than the rest of the year generally. May and June are typically the wettest months. We'll definitely see rainstorms and hail and thunder, and yes, sometimes even snow. And just last year, there was enough rain and warmth combined together with that spring runoff that actually caused some flooding down in certain parts of the state, most of which were off of the river, near Yellowstone National Park. Red Lodge, Montana flooded, as well as Gardner. But that's not typical. It's not something we see every single year. We had a very warm spring and all of that rain, and it just caused kind of a perfect storm, which was really unfortunate. But all of those communities came together, and things are essentially rebuilt with the exception of the original road from Gardner that goes into Yellowstone National Park. They did have to work on and improve a different road that is now that access for that entrance to Yellowstone. Now, I've talked about the spring snow quite a bit. Typically, those we don't see those very much after about mid-May, if not earlier. Typically, that moisture or wetness in those months of May and June tend to be, rainstorms and thunderstorms until about October or November, when we will start seeing that snow fly again. And typically with that weather, even if we do get snowstorms, by mid to late spring, they're really not going to affect the roads as much anymore either. There may be sometimes at night, if it snows and it gets cold enough that it can affect that road surface, but typically speaking, that's going to be cleared off by the next day, or the roads will just be wet and not as affected as they would be in winter because the air temperature and ground temperature is quite a bit warmer as we head into spring. But as I've said many times before, it is always best to be prepared. And oftentimes, just simply taking those winter tires off of your vehicle can be the very thing that triggers a snowstorm. Now, as far as temperatures go here in spring in southwest Montana, particularly Bozeman, the average high in March is 46 and the average low is 23. Again, that's mostly at night, of course. So still pretty wintry at that point, as you can tell. In April, the average high in Bozeman is about 56 and the average low is 30. So we're starting to warm up just a little bit. And then into May, the average high is 65 and the average low is 38. And of course, these are averages, and there are certainly deviations on either end where it could get colder and it could get quite a bit warmer. And then as we get into June, we start to see those temperatures creep into the 70s and it starts looking more and more like summer. Needless to say, springtime in Bozeman is absolutely beautiful. Things are starting to turn green. The wildflowers are absolutely something to see for yourself. And it's just a great reminder of all of the summer fun we have ahead of us with the warmer weather on the water or hiking or camping. It's an absolute paradise for outdoor adventure. And of course, in the true nature of a Montana springtime, these past few days or a few days ago, we actually saw a couple of road closures on the interstate due to some snow that came through overnight. And then by this weekend, we could see a high of 70. I've got several other videos about Bozeman, doing vlog tours or talking about the real estate market, as well as the surrounding areas here in Southwest Montana. So be sure to check those out if you're curious about learning more. Do you have a favorite Montana spring activity, or did I forget something entirely? If so, I'd love it if you'd leave it in the comments below. And as always, if you have questions or if you're looking to buy or sell or move or invest in the next 9 days or 90 days, just give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email, and I'd be honored to help you find your place here in beautiful Bozeman and the surrounding areas here in Southwest Montana. And until next time, I hope to see you out there.